Now it's time for the real news with your host, Farron.
Hello and welcome to the Real News, your weekly call-in broadcast where we discuss current events of the week, our disappearing liberties, and our dismantling of our Constitution and our rapid dissension into socialism. Our guest today is Pastor Ronnie Baity of Berean Baptist Church, Winston-Salem. His organization is ReturnAmerica.org. He will join us shortly. This week we continue to see the Obama administration filling his positions with tax evaders and the same old elite that have destroyed our economy and our country. People, please attempt to wake up from your mass hypnosis and realize that right now the bill H.R. 645 in Congress is to set up FEMA camps to house Americans if or when civil unrest comes to America. We have already witnessed rioting in France, Iceland, and Greece. These people are beginning to understand the utter failures of their governments. This economic collapse should demonstrate the complete incompetence of our government, and as the Obama regime continues the failed policies of the Bush administration in attempting to throw massive amount of indebtedness at the problem, Obama actually said on Thursday that Congress must pass the stimulus to stave off a catastrophe. Does it sound much like hope and change to me? Meet the new boss, just like the old boss. Now bankrupt America, actually $11 trillion past bankrupt, will print and borrow another trillion for the so-called stimulus, running the printing presses 24/7, printing unbacked fiat currency while moving us further into inflation and the soon-to-be hyperinflation to save the economy by enslaving even our grandchildren with this ludicrous plan totally against the will of the American people. We should all realize our government no longer submits nor even cares about the will of we the people. We have taxation without representation. We will report today that as we speak, the military is flying over New Orleans, practicing with local law enforcement for urban warfare and civil unrest in America on Americans. Check it out for yourself. As I said last week, the economic meltdown that anyone with critical thinking and common sense should have seen coming years ago, and many did as we've reported here on this broadcast, this collapse is going to be used to consolidate financial powers into fewer and fewer hands. A new world order, as now they openly and publicly admit. It is being used to get the American people to accept what otherwise would be unacceptable. Just look how far we have let this thing go. We accept as normal the government taxing us for over 50% of our earnings. They actually have the gall to confiscate 28% of your paycheck before you even get your money. If acquiring massive debt would fix the economy, we would live in a utopia here in America. My question is, all these hundreds of thousands of Americans being thrown out of work, where are they supposed to get jobs? The government has destroyed the manufacturing sector in America. We can't all mow yards and wash cars. The states are now going bankrupt, again through mismanagement. We need to accept the fact the federal government is not the solution, no, far from it. These elitists that really run the show, the Federal Reserve, the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, are the problem. This Goliath of a government that is obviously moving us from any semblance of freedom, from any semblance of common sense, governing us into a police state, one world government, socialistic tyranny, must be opposed and must be exposed for the sake of our children's future. We can no longer sit back and accept this destruction of our nation and our sovereignty. In a discussion this week, a gentleman pointed out to me the fact that I and many others in radio point out the problems but offer no solutions. I, for one, have grown tired of attempting to vote these bums out that have corrupted our system. Perhaps the solution is for our state and others to succeed from this tyranny or to uphold our constitutional right that says if our government becomes so corrupt, it is our right and our duty to dismantle it and replace it with a just system. When we go to the phones, I would like to get the public's response to this question. And Brian, do you have any thoughts on that before you lead us into the first news segment?
Well, as Peter Schiff recently stated on Yahoo Finance yesterday, the government is trying to perpetuate a phony economy based on borrowing and spending. They're trying to give us more money to bury ourselves even further into debt slavery. The answer, of course, is we have to just allow this to play out. We have to allow a recessionary forest fire, if you will, to just get rid of all the underbrush.
Yes, we can't stimulate our way out of this. One of the proposals in the stimulus was a big tax credit if you run out and bought a new car. Enslave yourself with debt while you might lose your job. How is that helping anyone? You're just enslaving yourself.
And then that's just a Band-Aid. Eventually, we're going to have to face up to the fact we're bankrupt.
Exactly. We are bankrupt and we are spiraling down the black hole.
And we have millions upon millions of lost jobs. Our manufacturing base is all but evaporated, sent overseas. We have more and more regulations here in the United States, as Ron Paul pointed out last week from the video we listened to, the Sarbanes-Oxley, putting enormous tax burdens on businesses here in the United States. And as you pointed out to me, Farron, if you just got laid off from, say, Caterpillar, General Motors, and you're looking for a job, say you go to Jack in the Box, you see, tell our listeners about that story.
And this came to us from a listener, and I went and checked it out for myself. If you go to Jack in the Box and order through the drive-thru, you're not speaking to someone inside the building. They have outsourced that to foreign countries. Go by and check it out for yourself. They can have a person taking orders for several stores and doing it by computer. So they're outsourcing even the simplest job at the Jack in the Box. I mean, America, people, we're in bad shape, and I for one say we hold our government officials that have sold us down the black hole and have collapsed our economy either through incompetence or intentionally, and I vote for the latter, accountable. This is unacceptable. We just cannot accept this. Our children's futures are being mortgaged, and the American people, for the most part, are sitting back quietly. But we're going to have some reports on what's going on in California and other parts of the country that's not accepting it as well. And I foresee what we're seeing in Iceland, Greece, France coming to America.
And here, for example, a highly skilled machinist from General Motors or Caterpillar gets laid off. Of course, there's no more manufacturing, so, well, I have to settle for a service job, and I can't even get a job at Jack in the Box because it's been outsourced to India.
Exactly. I mean, so sad. Unbelievable.
It's an article by Mike Adams from Natural News, Thursday, February 5th, 2009. U.S. Treasury begins final blowout phase as Fed ramps up inflationary debt purchases using fictitious money. For those of you who hadn't been paying much attention to the financial situation recently, the U.S. Treasury has just entered what I call the final blowout phase of debt desperation. The Treasury is set to auction off $67 billion in debt next week, to be followed by increasingly frequent auctions of yet more debt to the tune of unknown billions or even trillions each year. The question is, who is stupid enough to actually buy 30-year debt notes from the United States Treasury? The hilarious answer is the Federal Reserve. Yes, the Fed will begin creating yet more money out of thin air in order to buy the IOUs of the Treasury and create the appearance that somebody is actually buying U.S. debt. At this point, it should be apparent to anyone with functioning brainwaves that the only reason the Fed has to step in and buy the debt is because no one else is willing to pay for it. If you're a rich oil sheik in the Middle East, do you really want to trade your hard-won wealth for pieces of paper with IOUs written on them from a nation that has no financial future and can't even find buyers for its debt any longer? Of course not, especially for a measly 2.9% interest rate. The number of international suckers willing to pony up cash in exchange for empty promises from a bankrupt country is dwindling fast. So the only remaining buyer is the private company running the counterfeiting machines, the Federal Reserve. The upshot of all this, by the way, is that the Fed's creation of new money to buy Treasury debt will result in the rampant acceleration of hyperinflation in the U.S. currency. The layers of madness in all this simply defy explanation. The financial pros are taking their money and exiting the United States banking system faster than a room full of senators running away from responsibility. There are now only two lawmakers in Washington who seem willing to stand up to the Fed. Representative Ron Paul and Representative Dennis Kucinich.